All right, here we go with 7.5. Just a reminder. Get to a quiet place, put headphones in, make sure you've got a way to take notes. Be prepared to pause and rewind. Don't just skim through this. This stuff's kind of important. We've got 3 properties we're going to talk about today that we're going to be working through, so make sure you take some good notes. First property, this is on page 1111 if you would want a screenshot from your book, or of course you can screenshot from right here. Here's the simple thing on this one. This is the power property. Think about the power property that we've talked about in the past. When I have power to a power, what do? Hopefully your answer was multiply. Okay, that's what's going on here. Okay, when I have the log of a power, m to the p, I can just take that p and slide it out in front and multiply it by the log. Okay, same thing notice here. If I have log base 2 of 6 to the 5th, this 5 can just slide out in the front and it gets multiplied. Okay. Now, we're going to work through some problems where they're going to give us certain log values, and we're going to try to use the properties to help us find a new log value. For example, here's one that they give us log base 3 of 7. It's approximately 1.7712. I have to somehow use this to come up with this. So since the only property we currently know is the power property, what I want you to think is there a way that I could write 49 as 7 to some power? How could I rewrite 49 as 7 to some power? Well, 7 to what power equals 49? Really, this is what I'm trying to figure out. 7 to what power equals 49? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Hopefully by now you figured it out. 7 to the second power is 49. And so what now I can do using the power property is just take this 2 and slide it in front. See, we know what this is. That's why I underlined it. 1.7712 equals log base 3 of 7. So I can just replace this with that value right there. And then I will have found log base 3 of 49 since this equals 49. Okay, so I put that value in there, multiply it out, and I've got my answer. 3.5424 equals log base 3 of 49. Okay, hopefully that seems simple enough. You just drop the 2 in front. Let's look at another one, similar type of thing. How can I write 32 as 2 to some power? So 2 to what power equals 32? Grab your calculator if necessary, play around with it, experiment until you find the right value, and then come back to the video. After your experimentation, hopefully you understand and figured out that 2 to the 5th equals 32. So just like the last problem now, all I've got to do is take the 5, slide it out in front since I already know log base 4 of 2. Okay, log base 4 of 2, they tell us is 0.5, so I can replace all of this with 0.5. It gets multiplied by 5, and so there you go, 2.5. Simple enough using the power property. Now, you're not always going to be able to rewrite numbers as that to some other power, so we need some other properties. So the next property we're going to look at is the product property. This is the product property. And think about exponents. If I have x to the 3rd times x to the 5th, this is a product. What do I do with the powers? Hopefully your answer was add them. That's where the product property of logarithms and the power rules of products are the same. If I have a logarithm of 2 numbers multiplied together, I can split them into separate logs by addition. Okay, now normally you wouldn't see a problem like this. It wouldn't say log base 2 of 5 times 6. It's log base 2 of 30. And I can use the factors of 30 to separate them into 2 logs, because you're going to probably be given this or be given this. And then, like in the last problem, you're going to have to manipulate it around a little bit to use the properties. Okay. Again, when I have the log of a product, I can separate them as 2 separate logs using addition. That's why it's the product property. So here's the kind of problem you're going to see. So I've got the log base 4 of 3 equals 0.7925. I've got the log base 4 of 5 equals 1.1610. So essentially what I'm being asked to do is figure out a way to rewrite 75 using just 3 and 5. Okay. Now there's a couple ways you can go about this. You can use a product property, you can use the product property and power property, but for now, since we're on the product property page, let's figure out a way to rewrite 75 using only 3 and 5 and multiplying. So how could I come up with 3 and a 5 and multiply together until I got to 75? And you can use numbers more than once. So think about that for a minute. How to come up with 3 using only 3 and 5, multiplying together to get 75. Well, hopefully you thought, all right, this is 25 times 3. Well, 25 is just 5 times 5. So couldn't I just rewrite this as 3 times 5 times 5? And of course the answer is yes. Yes, you can. This does equal 75. And since I have 3 numbers multiplied together, I can separate this into 3 logs by addition. So I'm going to get 3 logs. Log base 4 of 3, log base 4 of 5, log base 4 of 5. And when I add those 3 together, I will get the same value as if you type that in the calculator, which can be done, but I'm not going to show you how to do that quite yet. Okay. So I need to replace this. Log base 4 of 3 is 0.7925. Log base 4 of 5 is 1.1610. So I just have to put those in both of those places. And essentially this is what I have now. This is the log base 4 of 3. This is the log base 4 of 5. This is the log base 4 of 5. So add those together and we're in good shape. And so my answer, the log base of 75, actually equals 3.1145. So that's how you'd use the product property. We have one more to look at, and that is the quotient property. And if you remember, if I have the same base and I'm using division, what do I do with the powers? Hopefully you said, Mr. Zukin, you subtract. Probably not like that, but anyway. So if I have the log of 2 numbers divided by each other, which that's the quotient is the answer to the division problem, I can separate them by subtracting. Keep in mind, the numerator, the top number, has to come first. The denominator has to come second. The order of subtraction matters. Okay. So notice over here the example they give us, log base 2 of 5, 6 is the same as log base 2 of 5, the numerator, minus log base 2 of 6. So here's the problem I want you to look at. Now this one's fairly straightforward because there's really only one option. Somehow I have to use 3 and 5. Well, I already have division. Since it's one log of division, I can separate using subtraction. Log base 4 of 5 minus log base 4 of 3. I plug in my values, do the subtraction, and there's my answer. Now, in some of your homework, you're going to do problems just like the ones that we did. The other problems that you're going to do are actually using these properties to solve equations, because that's really why we do this kind of stuff. And so, and in actuality, what we're going to do is use the properties backwards. So instead of starting off with something like this, we're going to start off with something like this, and we have to bring them together to turn it into something like this. And you'll kind of see what I mean here in a second. See, here's the key here. I've got this 2 logs base 7 of x, log base 7 of 27 plus log base 7 of 3. I'm trying to figure out what x is, right? That's the goal of solving every equation, it seems like. What your strategy is I need it to be log on one side equals log on the other side. 1 log and 1 log. And I'm almost there here. I got this 2 in front I got to deal with. But here I'm not really close. This is 2 logs. I needed to get to 1 log. So when we look at this problem, let's start with this left-hand side. Okay, this number in front, when we saw this before, originally, where did it start off? We moved it to the outside in the other problems. So we're just going to move it back in. Okay? So that 2 goes back in as a power on x. And over here I have addition. So I can combine those together by using the product property and multiplying 27 times 3. Here's where I'm at. 27 times 3 is 81. the 2 goes in as a power. So now I have it as log equals log. And now all I've got to do, when I have it like that, is I just cancel the logs out. So I have x squared equals 81. I just got rid of the logs. Okay. Now, in order to solve this equation, we've solved equations like this before. I need to undo the square root, undo the squaring. I just gave it away. So, in order to do that, you must take the square root. But when you take the square root of both sides, remember you have to have that plus or minus. So, when I do that, I take the square root plus or minus 81. The square root of 81 is 9. So this is plus or minus 9. Then I have to check. Now here's the issue. Right? Remember, this number can never be negative. And if I solved and I get negative 9 as one of my solutions, then this number is negative. That's a problem. So we're going to throw out negative 9, and I'm going to have one solution, x equals 9, because this can't be negative. So again, all I've done here is I use the properties backwards, bring them together to make it log equals log. I took the plus or minus square root of both sides. I threw the negative 1 out. In this case, you're not always going to throw it out because this number ended up being negative. Another type of problem, same idea. Okay. This one we're good. We got the log by itself. There's no number out in front. That one's fine. Now I got to figure out how to bring these together. All right. When you see this subtraction, hopefully right away you think, okay, it's got to be the, scroll through your notes, quotient property. All right. So I can bring these together in one log just by going 48 divided by n. Remember, this number has to go on top. I cancel the logs out since I have it as log equals log. And so what I have is 48 over n equals 6. 48 divided by what equals 6? Think about that. Play around with it. 48 divided by what number equals 6? You said 8. And this number is not negative. 8 is a positive. So we're in good shape there. So those are the 3 properties. That's it. You got to know those properties. The power property, product property, quotient property. Then solving equations, you got to get equal. Log equals log. And then just use those properties to solve. If you have questions, email me. We'll try to get it all sorted out. We'll talk to you later.